Fanboy, 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 fanboy. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Fanboy Reviews Countdown, and today we look at the top 10 worst Sonic games of all time. Now, the blue blazer, the blue hedgehog, whatever you want to call him, he's got a bunch of other nicknames. This is one of the most iconic mascots of all time, but Sonic has had his own share of terrible games as well. So let's take a look right now. Number 1. Sonic the Hedgehog came out in 2006 for the 360 and PS3, and this was developed by the Sonic team. What a shame. This sad attempt at a 7th generation 3D Sonic title, it just failed on every level imaginable. It had a horrible camera system which ruined any sort of enjoyment, awful controls which are too awkward, especially for a game that should play like an accessible, easy to pick up 3D platformer, and quite possibly the worst loading times we've seen in modern games. Sonic the Hedgehog, aka Sonic 06, as most people would refer to it, because they can't even tie this title into the original Sonic. It's such a complete travesty. Sonic 06 was plagued by various glitches and technical bugs, and the entire game just felt unfinished, untested, and quite honestly, just rushed for release. To top it all off, Sonic 2006 is rendered absolutely useless by a disgusting human cross-animal love story, which makes absolutely no sense in any halfway sane universe. By the way, for the record, the voice acting in this game absolutely, completely stinks. Alright, number 2. Sonic Generations came out in 2011. Released for multiple platforms, Sonic Generations is another terrible addition to the large amount of awful three-dimensional Sonic games. First of all, the boss battles are way too limited and uninspired. The graphics, although somewhat colorful, they get bogged down by frame rate issues. You can play in either classic mode, similar to the older 16-bit Sonic games, or modern Sonic, which are obviously in the third-person 3D. None of these modes are any good, because it's all very derivative of Sonic's history and provides really no original ideas or innovative gameplay. Sonic Generations fails. Number 3. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 came out in '92 for the Sega Genesis. Considered one of the worst 2D platformers for the Genesis, Sonic 2 was even worse than the original Sonic from '91. The graphics are very poor at best and look like some wannabe cel-shaded art design. It's not really that colorful, and it's not that creative. The music is hardly memorable because of the horrible Genesis audio output, and the Genesis just doesn't have good music. It's very primitive sounding. It's almost like it sounds like the Game Boy, honestly. You could probably get a better soundtrack from the original Atari. The worst part in the game is how you always die if you get hit and then you drop all your rings, which doesn't make any sense because rings should easily fit in Sonic's pocket. Wait a minute, wait. He doesn't have any pockets. Despite having other pieces of clothing, he's got shoes, he's got gloves. He ain't got no coat? He ain't got no pants? What a dumb character design. Makes no sense. Alright, number 4. Sonic Adventure 2 came out in 2001 for the Dreamcast. This was a horrible 3D Sonic sequel to the classic Sonic Adventure 1, because this was the last Sonic game released for Sega's doomed console. The camera system is easily one of the most frustrating things to ruin the game, which was arguably even a problem in the first one, but even worse in Adventure 2. The missions are far too repetitive, and they felt boring after a while, no matter which character you played. Speaking of characters, the game introduced a couple of unoriginal hack hack characters called Shadow the Hedgehog, which was basically just a darker ripoff of Sonic, and Rogue the Bat, who's just a copy of Morrigan from Darkstalkers. That's right. So really no original characters here. Other major problems include bland and linear level designs, confusing storyline, and poor unresponsive controls. Number 5. Sonic Colors came out in 2010 for the Wii and the DS. Now these were a couple of awful Nintendo exclusives. Colors is basically the typical modern Sonic game that combining side-scrolling and third-person elements without any actual innovation. The graphics are way too distracting at times, making it hard to see your character during the gameplay. You know, they try to make it colorful, but it's too much, man. They gotta keep it simple. The boss fights are too easy and provide very little challenge. The Wisp power-ups are very useless for the most part, and they're really not any fun. They're kind of boring. Worst of all, the replay value is so low that you'll probably spend a few minutes playing the game, but never play it afterwards. It's just a complete tedious experience. Number 6. Sonic CD came out in '93 for the Sega CD. Now, just like the failing system that it was released for, Sonic CD never got any mainstream success. But it's still one of the worst in the series for introducing the most ridiculous and unrealistic idea in the storyline. Time traveling. That's right. The gameplay is time travel based, but it doesn't work at all because it's very confusing and just unbelievable. You know, the whole good future, bad future dynamic is also just unoriginal because we've seen this, these ideas from movies like Terminator 2 and Back to the Future. The worst part of Sonic CD is the horrible soundtrack, and if you want good video game music, you know, just listen to Mario Brothers instead of this corny pseudo-techno-funk nonsense. Alright, number 7. Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed came out in 2012 on multiple systems. One of the worst kart racing games ever made. This is really nothing but a complete rip-off of the most legendary and influential kart racing series in existence, Mod Nation Racers. That's right. Mod Nation Racers came out first, you know, way back in 2010 for PS3 and PSP. But the gimmick here with All-Stars Transformed is that you can use cars, boats, and planes in the game, which is basically just a rip-off of Transformers. And matter of fact, you know what? The entire game is just a poor man's imitation of other kart racing games, but just with, you know, worse graphics, unoriginal gameplay, and just bad repetitive music, and of course a cast of forgettable mascots and characters. Number 8. Sonic Heroes came out in '03 for the GameCube, PS2, Xbox, and PC. Wow, that's like the trifecta of frickin' 6th generation. But Sonic Heroes, you know, it featured the gimmick of controlling various teams, focusing on speed, power, and flight. The problem here is that there's just way too many characters, and they're all completely generic. The environments and stage designs have very little color and just look way too bland for a game that's intended to be cheerful and colorful. Just like most 3D Sonic games, it features bad voice acting and horrible camera. I mean, yeah, the PS port was the best version of Sonic Heroes, there's no doubt about it. But that's not saying a lot, considering that all the ports of the game is complete garbage anyway. Number 9. Sonic the Hedgehog came out in '91 for the Genesis. Easily one of the worst platformers in gaming history. The original Sonic was basically just a parody of Mario Brothers, and really all they did was add speed to the gameplay. But what most fans don't really know is that this game is basically a rip-off of Uniracers for the SNES. That's right, go look it up right now on YouTube, Uniracers. Uniracers for Super Nintendo. Uniracers was a really fast-paced, high-octane 2D kind of racing game, and basically it was bitten by Sega, ripped off, and then they used it for the Sonic game. So you know, Sega's just a bunch of unoriginal thieves. But regardless, Sonic the Hedgehog itself just sucked because of the whole dumb ring design, which are basically just coins mixed with like a health bar. That's all they were. And it doesn't even make any sense. Why would a freaking hedgehog pick up rings? It doesn't even register. The enemy is some old, fat, bald, mustache dude who rides around in flying vehicles, and that doesn't make any sense because, you know, the rest of Sonic's characters are furry animals or anthropomorph creatures. Number 10. Sonic Adventure. Came out in '98 for the Dreamcast. This was the best-selling Dreamcast game out there, but it's also one of the worst Sonic games ever because of the infamous, horrible camera making its presence throughout the whole game. Sonic Adventure just sucked the potential out of this game. I mean, every other problems, there's so many of them. There's a lot of glitches, a lot of bugs, bad voice acting, very simple stage designs, and of course you had the useless Chow Gardens, or is that how you... Chow. I always thought that was ridiculously stupid. You had to raise basically a virtual pet. They were called Chows for really no apparent reason. I guess these were supposed to be like Tamagotchis and Gigapets kind of thing, which was a fad virtual pet kind of toy at that time, you know, in the late 90s, but the idea was horrible, and looking back on it, just completely a waste of time. And let's face it, Sonic Adventure, it started the trend of crappy 3D Sonic games that we had to suffer through for many, many years to come. Alright, so that's it for the top 10 worst Sonic games of all time, and let me tell you something, if you ever were a fan of Sonic, I feel bad for you. And if you have any Sonic games right now, or if you're trying to play them, if you're going to buy them in the future, don't even bother. You know it's going to stink. Sonic is nothing but a complete rip-off of, like, Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny mixed with, you know, Mario and all these other characters. If anything, actually, you know, he's more of a mix of Mario and Crash Bandicoot. Yeah, I forgot to mention they ripped off Crash Bandicoot. Sonic is a waste of time, and all his games pretty much stink. That's it for this episode of Fanboy Reviews. And until next time, keep fanboying. Yeah!